the Lord takes things from us, we think like, oh, he's just taking it because he's our father and like he takes stuff. It's just, that's what he does. It's like, no, he actually takes things, allows you to survive without it, and then hands it back to you sometime, most of the time, I would say. And it's like, all right, now you can steward it without this dependency on it. You can actually have it. And whether it's like give or take, like, blessed be the name of the Lord. I don't need this thing for my joy, right? And so I've seen him do this with me progressively through my Christian walk. And as time went on, it was like, oh, there's this joy that kind of emerges that with or without this thing, I can survive. I can be okay. Because the thing that I really need more than anything is my relationship with God. And that is the thing that keeps me and steadies me when difficulty happens. How do I continue to live a life that is bound to persecution, that is bound to hardship, that is bound to suffering, and find joy in the midst of it? And again, if you are in this search, you are in the right place, because this is not a place of expertise or that I've mastered it or figured it out. This is something that I am still in the process of learning, and I can say that it has gotten better. And there were two things I think I kind of want to emphasize that I feel like really helped. And I'd like to share that. So point one was allowing myself to feel emotions that were hard. And so what that means is that I stopped trying to like stifle particular negative emotions because I wanted to stay in a place of happy all the time, right? So what I would do is like things would be going in my life and whatever, and there would be hardship that would show up and I would kind of push it aside. I get busy, I would distract myself, I would do all these different things to kind of cope with whatever was happening. And inevitably it would just get worse and worse and worse and worse until I would finally be unable to like push away the difficulty, and I would be overwhelmed by it. And so with time, the Lord started to help me see like, hey, you actually don't need to avoid this. You don't actually need to push it aside. You can actually immediately take it to me and I will help you through it. And when I would immediately take it to him, right? The benefit of that was just I got to process the emotion way faster. I really got to deal with the feeling in the moment. And sometimes that meant I would like cry and just like let it out. And then I'd be moving on with my day. So I stopped trying to like stifle the flow of my emotions. I just let myself feel them. And it was just like, okay, like I'm sad and I cried. Like sometimes I'll be driving and then like something will have happened and I'll be talking to the Lord about it and I'll cry. And it's just like, wet my tears. All right, time to keep going. And it allows this flow to take place where it's almost like, it is like my emotions are going to move, they are going to change. And the problem becomes when I try to control them, or I try to resist them, or I try to push them away, or I try to ignore them, and then they just fester and get worse. So I really think this has helped. And like these are intended to be practical as well to some degree. And also, um, I had a friend who, someone, not like she's not a friend anymore, but not quite as close anymore. But she really taught me this scripture, which is Proverbs 17:22, which is a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. And at the very core, it was really about learning to laugh. It was learning when difficulty happened and and I have a really funny anecdote for the end of this, but just learning to laugh. Like when I feel so frustrated and angry, to laugh. And so here's an example of something that took place, I think, this was like maybe a week ago. So I was actually preparing for bed, and I was like, I had a really good evening, was like winding down, and there is anyways, so I find a cockroach in my apartment, and we have a long me and cockroaches have a long-standing history. Is like I hate them. They show up sometimes the most inconvenient times. I'm moving, by the way. And so I'm finding this cockroach in my apartment running around, and I'm chasing this cockroach. And after I kill him, I now inevitably have to clean the entire kitchen because I'm just super grossed out by his presence, and I don't want anything that he touched to be left. So I'm cleaning it like, finally, like maybe an hour ish of like intensively cleaning every spot that he was on or near. I'm like leaving my kitchen and I stepped on some glass. This is in my apartment, okay? So it was like a small crevice that I had like dropped glass like maybe like months ago, and I somehow it ended up in my toe. And I'm just like I it took me like 40 minutes to remove this glass from my toe. And just the transition from like one to another, I was like mad, and I felt myself getting so frustrated. And I think I had like an early morning too. So I was like looking at the clock being like, oh my goodness, like this is not how I was planning on this night going. And I just started to laugh. And it honestly, it was funny. Like, and when I told my sister the story, like, a week later, she's like, are you serious? That was your night? I was like, and I can say it now and like laugh. And it's funny because it was just the odds, right? Like it just the odds of what took place. And so this friend really taught me the value of that. It's like not to take life so seriously, to really find opportunities to laugh when things get hard. Like just to really find the humor in it. And if you can't find the humor in it, my one of my like last maybe practical things is I just watch comedy and I laugh. And I like it can be the worst day ever. And if I find like a really solid Christian, because you got to be careful about comedians, when I find like a really solid comedian that I really enjoy watching, I find it really lifts my spirits. It just gives me like kind of like a release. And I think it's an important thing to participate in when you can. And so, where is a good place to land? Obviously, scripture, because that is at the core of everything I really love to do. So, let's go to, oh, there it is. God's so good. Thank you. Psalm 4:7. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound or increases. The version that I have. So this scripture really caught me last week, well, technically the end of this week, that I was like kind of thinking about what I was going to speak about, and it's really stuck out to me is that to have joy even more so than in a time of harvest. And I thought, what a beautiful anecdote for like finding joy, is that like that our joy would abound so much that it exceeds when we have something, when we have more than when we have what we think we want, right? And there's story after story of person who has so much. They have money, they have fame, they have power, they have, people that they can have like as in relationship with, followers, all these different things, and they're miserable, right? Their lives are meaningless. And that really stuck out to me because you can have all the stuff, you can have all of the things, and you cannot have joy. You cannot have peace. You cannot have the Lord in your life, And what a sad place to be, to have everything, and the most important thing that we could have in our life, which is a relationship with God, be absent. So it's like sometimes it really looks like if the problems just stopped, or if we had the things we wanted, those things would be resolved, like life would be better. But I don't know about you, but my emotional life, it never changed depending on what I had or what was there. Like when I went to school, my emotional life didn't change being in school versus out of school. And I remember it was very hard at certain points to stay focused and motivated. And the only thing I think the Lord gave me this in my mind to just hold on to, which is I refuse to look back on this promise the Lord has fulfilled in my life and to say I was miserable. I refuse. I refuse to have wanted to spend 10 years desiring to do my master's, and that when he finally brought it to pass and a bunch of things happened that were out of my control. I got COVID twice. I was in a car accident. I had the flu more times than I can count. I had so many things happen in that time, and I just kept saying to myself, I refuse to be miserable. I refuse to do that because this is a promise that I have desired since I was 24. And now years later, after the Lord has brought it into my life, it was something where I was like, I refuse to be miserable. And I think that's sometimes at the core of this is like when you get those things you want, life's not gonna like stop. Your emotions aren't gonna improve, or just because you have the things you want, there has to be something inside of you that is able to be satisfied irrespective of the things that you have. And the only thing that really satisfies our heart is God. That's it. That is at the core of all of this. Is he is the one who satisfies us. He is the one, the relationship that we cannot do without. He is the one who satisfies our soul. And that's why a lot of those things that God gives, they end up stop satisfying after a particular point, is we stop prioritizing God. So it's like we try to fill God's place with that spouse he gave us, or we try to fill God's space with that promise he gave, that fame or that ministry. We try to fill God's place with it, and it won't fill it. It will not fill it. The only thing in our life that we need to be fully content is God. And he needs to constantly be at the throne of our heart and in our life. And it's not always easy. And there are times that we can get distracted, and I'm fully there. I fully can get distracted like that as well. But the most gratifying moments that I've had sometimes were literally when I had nothing. There was nobody, there was nothing in my life, and it was God. It was a sunset that he would set before me for months. The same one that captured my heart, and I just knew that even when it was happening, or in retrospect, it was like he is the one who fulfills. He is the one. Every good and perfect gift comes from him. But if we misplace it, if we misuse it, if we don't continue to honor our relationship to God, even those good things can become bad things. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound. What good is grain and wine without the provider, without the creator? I hope you guys have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are, and continue to seek the joy in your relationship with God, and in that time with him. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? Trust Jesus. Take care. Bye.